Hi, my name is Vicky Henderson. Thank you for signing up to your Micro Mindset Revolution. What we're going to be doing in the first stage of this mini course is having a quick look at stress, anxiety, and worry, how you can unravel it, how you can manage it, and how you can overcome it. My name is Vicky Henderson from Ascend Performance Coaching, but before we get started, I'm going to let you into a little secret. I'm a career chameleon, a globetrotter, a fine wine and food lover, a gardener, a French speaker, a bookworm, an avid skier and hiker, a personal development junkie, and a retired world champion mood hoover. I used to be able to suck the positive mood and energy out of any room. For every solution that you found, I had a problem as to why it wouldn't work. It was really hard work. And 4.5 years ago, nearly 5 years ago, I was sitting where you are today, thinking that there must be more to life and that I needed to get my mind sorted out. So alongside those things that I've just told you about me, I'm also a mindset revolutionary, an emotional intelligence specialist, and a multiple award-winning coach, speaker, trainer, and mentor. So let's get started. I'm going to start by telling you a little story. And the story is about a grandfather, a Cherokee grandfather, and his grandson. And the grandson used to absolutely love stories, particularly the ones made up about the wolves that lived around where they lived. And the grandfather said one day, "Son, there was once an almighty fight between two wolves. On one side, there was the good wolf. The good wolf was kind and generous. The good wolf was confident, positive, full of joy and happiness. And they were on one side of the fight. And then the fight on the other side was the bad wolf. Now, the bad wolf was angry and he was arrogant and he was full of hate and guilt and fear and hurt. And he was a really tricky character to deal with. And they were having this huge fight and all the other wolves were watching on thinking, who's going to win? And the grandfather is telling this story and his grandson's like, but come on, who wins, grandfather? And his grandfather says to him, son, in each of our heads, we have a good wolf and we have a bad wolf. And the little boy's like, yeah, but that still doesn't tell me who wins. And his grandfather says, the wolf that wins, son, is the wolf that you feed. So I, 5 years ago, stopped feeding my bad wolf and started feeding my good wolf. And the result of that is a complete life transformation and a completely new mindset. And that's what we're going to be working towards. So how does your mind work? Your mind works in strange ways. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to count how many black things you can see in the room that you're sitting in as you're watching this video. I'd like you just to get counting now. And now I'd like you to stop counting and I'd like you to write the number down. And the next thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to write down the number of orange things that you counted when I asked you. Now, I'm hoping you've all got the number 0 written down because I asked you to count black things. But what I'm doing to you is demonstrating how something called your reticular activation system works. What on earth is that, I hear you say? Well, very simply, you will see what you focus on. So when I decided to buy my Fiat 500, I can tell you that overnight, my whole local area, everybody was driving Fiat 500s because I triggered my reticular activation system to look for Fiat 500s, to be aware of them, to think about them. So that's what I was seeing. But what about if you've triggered your reticular activation system to see stress and worry and negative emotions all the time? So that's all you see more of. How would your life be if you could change that focus and look for the positive, the solutions, the opportunities, and have a completely different mindset? That's what is possible if you work on it. Now, the next thing is about models of the world. We are bombarded by 2 million bits of information every second. We can't possibly process and digest 2 million bits of information. What we can do, though, is we can take 134 of those. And that might be sight, smells, colors, tone of color, brightness of color. It might be things that you can taste, things that you hear, emotions, all of this information you're choosing to take on board. And the information you choose makes up what you call your model of the world. And that's how you see your world or the world at any given time. But if you can only process 134 bits of information of the 2 million you're being bombarded for every single minute, imagine how your model of the world will differ from somebody else's, because they've chosen their own 134 bits of information. And what happens is that you have your model of the world and they have their model of the world. And sometimes they buff up against each other. Sometimes you're in agreement, but sometimes you're not. And this is where miscommunication and arguments come into it. But I'm here to tell you all that if you were standing directly opposite me and I took a chalk and I drew a 6 on the ground, which was a 6 for me, that it would be a 9 for you. Now, I would be completely correct saying it was a 6, and so would you be completely correct saying that it's a 9. So next time you have a disagreement with somebody, think about the different perspective they may be seeing it from and admit that actually you could both be right. And really, you're just wasting a lot of time and energy arguing over something completely ridiculous. So the next thing I want you to think about are 3 things about your communication. Now, we communicate all the time. 100% of our communication is when we can see the full body language. We can hear the voice and we can hear the words. But what then happens when we move on to a telephone call is we take 55% of our communication away, and our brain tries to fill that gap. It tries to do some mind reading. Now, I'm here to tell you that our brains are not really very good at mind reading. They get it wrong most of the time. So they're going to try and mind read the body language of somebody when you're on the phone. It's not going to work. You're going to end up with your model of the world clashing with somebody else's potentially because your perspective is not the same as theirs. So thinking about that, then take out the tone of the voice and the voice when you go to email and text, which is what we all live by now. That's only 7% of the communication. So you've lost 93%, and your brain's then trying to fill a 93% hole with the tone of the voice as well as the body language that the person might have. And quite frankly, you're really getting yourself into some deep water now. So let's have a think about communication with that in mind. The meaning of your communication is the response that you get. So you might feel all bubbly and full of beans, and you might say to somebody, "Oh, hi, how's it today? I'm having a great day. How are you?" And they might respond with, "Ugh," or not respond at all, or completely ignore you. And the first thing your brain's going to start doing at that point is going, "Oh my God, what did I say wrong?" I'm here to tell you that it's not about you. Okay, the meaning of your communication is the response that you get. If you don't get the response you're expecting, you need to rephrase that communication. You need to find out where the misconnections occurred and rephrase it. So let's come back to that response. The response when somebody goes, "Oh," or completely ignores you when you've asked them really brightly if they're having a good day, it's not about you, it's all about them. You don't know what's happening in their life. You don't know what's happened up until that moment that you've come into contact with them. They might have had a child up awake all night. They might have had an almighty argument with their partner. They might have discovered that a family person's unwell. They might just have had a really bad journey to work and lots of traffic, or a phone call that's annoyed them. So remember, the response you get is not about you. It's all about the other person. And the last thing for you to remember before we move on is that the way you respond to anything is your choice. Now, because of your habits, your lifetime of habits, you might not feel that it's your choice, but actually it is. If you can take a step back and if you can give yourself a bit of space, absolutely, you have a choice of how you respond. You acknowledge the feeling, and then you choose how to respond. So you acknowledge that you're feeling angry, but then you choose how to respond, and always, always go for the win-win situation. You always want to have a constructive response. There's no point in arguing. It's a waste of time and energy, and it can really bring you down. So what else do we need to know about our mind? this is a really key one for me. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. Now, Henry Ford designed cars, the famous Ford, but he also was a great philosopher, philanthropist. He had a lot of coaching and he was a real personal development guy. And he's absolutely right. If you think you can do something, you'll give it a go. If you think you can't, you won't. It's time to open up and believe that you can do whatever you think you can do. So what are some unhelpful thinking styles that you might experience at the moment? You might personalize stuff. So you're going to blame yourself or take responsibility for something that wasn't your fault. And equally, you might blame somebody else for something that was your fault that you're not taking responsibility for. We're going to come on to this in the next slide. You might be using really critical words with yourself like should, must, and ought, and it will make you feel guilty and like you've already failed. But actually, you're just telling yourself fibs. You don't should have to, must have to, ought have to do anything. It's all based on a perception that you have about what the world should look like. Let go of that. Embrace the world for what it is like, and your life will be very different. We also apply shoulds to other people. Now, we can't take responsibility for their behavior, so there's no point. It's a waste of time and energy. Do you overgeneralize? Do you see a pattern, but you only base it on a single event? Okay, or you're being overly broad, such as everything is always rubbish or nothing good ever happens. They're both lies that you're telling yourself in your mind. Do you apply labels? Something doesn't go your way. Something doesn't go somebody else's way. So you apply a loser. I'm a loser. I'm completely useless. They're such an idiot. This is not useful thinking styles. What about your mental filter? Do you only focus on certain types of information? This so used to be me. I would only focus on my failures. I wouldn't see my successes. Again, really damaging. Magnification, catastrophization, minimization. These are all things that we do, particularly in an anxious state, which is about blowing things out of proportion or catastrophizing them, inappropriately shrinking something to make it seem less important when actually you need to put more focus on it. Are you a black and white kind of thinker? I'm not perfect, therefore I have failed. Either I do it right or I don't do it at all. Again, really not helpful in making you feel better about life and also how you go about living your life. Do you assume that because you feel a certain way that it must be true? I feel embarrassed, so I must be an idiot. Absolutely not. You feel embarrassed in a temporary one-off situation. That doesn't mean that you as a person are an idiot. You need to separate the person from the thinking and the behavior. Do you block out positive things and say they don't count? So you're always focusing on the negative, as I just said to you before about what you focus on. And do you dump to conclusions, try to mind read or fortune tell? Absolutely. We were just talking about that for communication, but you can also do that for the future. And that's where anxiety kicks in. So let's have a little bit more of a look at this responsibility. So be more duck. This is really key. When I learned this one, it was an absolute breakthrough for me. Be more duck. What's your responsibility? You are responsible for your words, your behavior, your actions, your efforts, your mistakes, your ideas, and the consequences of your actions. You are not responsible in any way, shape, or form for other people's ideas, actions, the consequences of their actions, their beliefs, their mistakes, and their words. And the minute you step away from everybody else's stuff, particularly on social media, don't get involved in these silly arguments. There's no point. They believe they're right. You believe you're right. No one's going to change their mind. It's just a waste of your time and energy. So what you need to do is be more duck. Focus on what you can take responsibility for and let the rest of it just wash over you and not worry you in any way, sense, or form. So what is stress, anxiety? And I put the word worry in there because actually, when I was younger, for those of you that are very young and teenagers watching this, I used to just worry a lot. I didn't really know the words stress and anxiety. I might have known stress, but definitely anxiety wasn't there. And because of what I'm going to talk about in a minute, it's now much more of it's kind of like it's a trigger word. And we can get very pulled into something because lots of people are using this word, but it's not actually being helpful to us. It works for adults as well, but mainly want the teenagers listening to this to think about that. So what's stress? Stress is an emotional or mental tension. And it's very much focused in the now, what's going on now. Anxiety is a feeling of fear, dread, or pain, and it's very future focused. And the biggest thing that you can learn from this slide is that if you avoid things that are making you feel anxious, it will get worse. If you just get on and do them, the anxiety will disappear. Now, coming back to that black and white thinking, lots of people believe that all stress is bad and all anxiety is bad. I'm here to tell you it's not. It's a scale. It's a scale. And what happens is that you will go up and down on this scale throughout your life, but actually stress and anxiety will only become a problem to you when the resources that you have to manage it are exceeded. So what we're going to do is add some more resources into your toolbox so that your tipping point when you fall into stress and anxiety that is too much for you is basically going to be extended. And again, think about the language and the labels. So lots of people say, I have anxiety. Now, you might feel a bit worried, but proper medical anxiety is completely different to day-to-day worries and anxiety. Okay, there's proper clinically assessed stress as well, and there's the everyday stresses of life. Now, I've worked at both ends of those spectrums from a personal point of view, and you can move between them. So don't apply a label to something and then use it to justify your behavior when actually what you should be doing is trying to find solutions to the problem. So a little bit more of a look about stress and anxiety. And I've also got depression on this slide because it comes up a lot. So depression is a focus on the past where you have little hope for the future and you have no goals to walk towards. This is a really key one for depression. That's not the focus of today, though. Today, we're looking at stress and anxiety. So let's look at stress. We said it was the here and the now. And we said there were two different types of stress. Well, there was a scale of stress, actually. There's something called eustress, which is good. We all need eustress. It motivates, it focuses, it improves our performance, and it's very short term. Okay, so when you're doing really well at life and you're getting loads of stuff done, that's eustress. It's good stress. But what happens when we reach that tipping point? We don't have any more resources left. We fall into something called distress, which is feelings of overwhelm, the inability to cope. It can be much more long term. It can still be short term as well. Your performance will go down and you will feel demotivated. So this is the spectrum of stress, and where somebody falls out of eustress and into distress will be different for everybody depending on the resources that they have available to them. So again, that's a quick recap. Now, anxiety is a big one. It's a focus on the future. Basically, your brain is wandering off into the future, inventing catastrophes and disasters that are unlikely to ever happen. And we feel anxious because we are afraid. And the brain's natural instinct is to protect us from danger, whether it's a real danger or a made-up danger. So again, anxiety has a scale. We need anxiety in our lives to keep us safe. That's the fight or flight function in our brain. When we get a feeling that we need to get away from somewhere, if we didn't have that feeling, we'd take silly risks and we'd kill ourselves off very, very quickly. So anxiety, we need a little bit, but let's call it worry. Let's call it keeping us safe. Okay? Our brains can't distinguish between real or made up. So when your brain's wandering off into the future, catastrophizing, inventing disasters and the worst case scenario, your brain believes it. So that protection kicks in. You produce something called cortisol, which is very which makes you feel tired, which is why all of this stuff brings you down. So we've had enough of the negative stuff. How are we going to get out of this? The first thing you're going to stop doing is stop saying my stress, my anxiety, my depression, my anything else. Okay? Do not apply these labels. They are not yours to keep. It is something that is happening over here, and you can choose whether you get rid of it or whether you keep it. Now, if you're on the clinical end of anxiety and stress, the getting rid of it aspect is much, much more challenging, obviously. That aspect of it, you will have to work with professionals, potentially one-to-one, like myself, like psychiatrists, you might have hypnotherapists, CBT, all sorts of different stuff over here, okay? But it's not yours to keep. You can overcome it and you can live without it. And there are plenty of examples of that, myself included. So from today, it's, I have anxiety. The anxiety is worrying me. I struggle with anxiety. It is not my anxiety. We're going to ditch that one straight away. So let's move into 5 strategies that I'm going to teach you today. Now, these strategies are also provided as part of this program on SoundCloud, so you can listen to them as audios. And also, you will be able to use them based on the small card that you will either have already received through the post from me or you will be about to use. Now, the cards are business card size, so you can keep it in your wallet, in your pencil case, wherever you need to keep it. So you've got all of these things to hand. Now, for this first strategy and also for the third one, I suggest that you invest in a notebook. Get yourself a notebook and basically dedicate that notebook to this course. Okay, what you want to be doing for anxiety strategy 1, and you want to be doing this on a regular basis going forward, you know, at least 2 or 3 times a week, ideally every day. But you're going to get to know the anxiety and the stress. Okay, and you're going to study it and you're going to understand it and you're going to track it. And what things do you need to think about? You need to think about what triggers it. What were you thinking about? What were you doing? What was happening that triggered the anxiety or the stress to come on so that you were aware of it? How intense was it on a scale of 1 to 10? And how long did it last? And the more you can track it, what then happens is you become aware of it. So you're not just drifting through life, you've become aware of it. And you can say, okay, well, that thing there, I know that's a trigger and I feel really bad. So that's a problem I need to sort out. This one over here doesn't trigger me as much. So that one is maybe not the priority to get sorted out. Now let's just focus on this one. So that's the first thing. Get yourself a notebook, start studying stress and anxiety so that you can really get to know it and find out how best to deal with it. This next one, strategy 2, again, this is one of the ones where you will find an audio on SoundCloud. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to participate with me now so you can have this experience. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to close your eyes and I'd like you to think about an event or a situation which is causing you stress or anxiety at the moment. And as you think about that, I want you to have a picture in your mind. And I want you to be able to feel those feelings of stress and anxiety. And now what I want you to do is I want you to think about, where is that anxiety located in your body? Now I'd like you to think about, what size is that anxiety or stress in your body? And give it a size, like a TV, a mobile phone, life size, larger than life size, whatever's right for you. What color is it? Take the first color that your brain gives you. What shape is it? Is it a triangle, a cube? Is it a ball? Is it moving about your body? Is it a heart? What shape is it? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how intense is it? I want you to notice how intense it is. 1 being really not very intense at all, 10 being so overwhelmingly intense that you really feel you can't deal with it. What I want you to do now is I want you to use your imagination to take that stress and anxiety out of your body and put it in your upturned hand, on the palm of your hand. And I want you, with your eyes closed, to imagine that you're looking at that anxiety that's sitting on your hand. And I first of all want you to turn the intensity of that down from wherever it is, say example 7 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 to 1, so that that whole feeling has disappeared. Then I want you to take the colour out of it, and I just want you to make it grey, unless it's grey already, in which case it can stay grey. And then I want you to imagine with your brain that you're shrinking that stress and anxiety right down until it's a puff, a speck of dust on your hand. And then I want you to lift it to your mouth and I want you to blow that speck of dust away. Now I want you to take 3 deep breaths, in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And now I'd like you to bring a new picture up in your head of somewhere where you feel calm and happy and relaxed. And when that picture's in your head and you can have that feeling of calm and happy and relaxed in your body, I'd like you to open your eyes and notice, where is the anxiety and stress now? You may find that it's gone completely. So that's the second strategy that you can use when you are dealing with stress or anxious feelings. Let's have a look at the third one. So the third one, again, we're back to the notebook. So this one is really great for anxiety specifically. So what's the worst case scenario for this situation? Now, I would advise that if you're feeling in any way, shape or form suicidal, please do not do this activity and seek professional help. However, anybody else, and for the majority of you on this, you will be able to do this activity. So the worst case scenario for the situation, write it down. This is where your brain goes in really anxious moments. This is the catastrophizing and the disastering and everything else. Write down what that catastrophe is, what that disaster is that your brain has made up as to the outcome of this thing that you are worrying about. Then what I want you to do is I want you to write a list of at least 10 things that you need to do to prevent this worst case scenario happening. So I want you to write down 10 things. When you've got your 10 things, the next thing you do is you write down what the positive outcome is that you want. So write that down. Now, remember, if this is about something medical, you can't control the outcome. The only thing you can control is how you deal with it and how you feel about it. So if you are worrying about a medical diagnosis and you are worried about it being positive, for example, you can't change that positive. So the outcome that you might want to focus on at this point is being able to cope with the diagnosis and find ways of overcoming it, of managing it, of living with it in a constructive and forward-focused way. So just remember, if you can't influence the outcome, this positive outcome that you want needs to be focused around what you can do, which is how you might react to it, how you might manage it, cope with it, etc., how you're going to feel about it. And then what I want you to do is write down 10 things that you need to do to make this positive outcome happen for you. And again, it's really important you get to 10 things. Why do I say this? Our brains chunk information, and it's 5 plus or minus 2. So some people can chunk 7 bits of information really easily. Some people get stuck at about 3. So by going to 10, you're taking your brain outside its normal patterns of thinking. And by forcing it outside those normal patterns of thinking, you might find that you come up with new solutions, new opportunities, and new ideas. And that's where the magic's going to happen. Because if you keep doing the same thing, you will keep getting the same result. So we need to come up with new things to help you get new results. So again, the next strategy will be having an audio attached to it. And again, you can join me now. Now, this is a really good one to do when you're out and about, when you may be overcome by feelings of stress or anxiety, and you want to just ground yourself and bring yourself back down again. Or you could get family members and friends to know how to take you through this. You've got the little card. So I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to take 3 deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And now I want you to look around you, and I want you to count 5 things that you can see. Now I want you to look at 4 things that you can touch. 3 things that you can hear. 2 things that you can smell. And finally, 1 thing that you can taste. Now, it might be towards the end that you're struggling, but it does mean you're not focused on feeling anxious. You're grounding yourself. You're bringing yourself back into the now and into the present. So that's anxiety strategy number 4. And now we're going to move on to the last one that I'm going to share with you. So this one is called minute meditation. You're going to close your eyes and you're going to tilt your head back. Now, the reason I get you to tilt your head back is that if your head is tilted back, it's very difficult to focus in on negative feelings. So tilt your head back, and all you do very simply in this one is you're going to breathe in and out. And I want you to focus on hearing your heartbeat. And we're going to do this for a minute. If you don't have a timer, you can do it about 10 times if it's really slow, and that way you will have got to your minute. But be amazed at how long a minute actually is and how little time out of your day it would take you to do this on a regular basis. So we're going to start now. There you go. That is your minute of meditation up. Now you can open your eyes and you can feel calm, relaxed, and get back on with what you need to be doing. So that brings me to the end of this presentation. Remember that you've got the audios on SoundCloud, and that you, if you haven't already received it, will be getting the small card through the post. So go out there, buy yourself a nice notebook so that you can work on strategies 1 and 3. And I hope that you get lots of benefits from this micro mindset revolution. If you do have any questions for me or want to get in touch with me, my email is vicky@ascendperformancecoaching.com, which is also on the screen, and there is my phone number as well. So thank you very much for joining me. Really hope you enjoy this course, and please, again, if you have any questions, just get in touch.